calling for an end to what they see as a trend of deprioritising basic education. Equal Education says the supplementary budget tabled in June has reduced the overall education budget by over 2 billion rand. And this, they say, has dire consequences for development within basic education.
Over thousands infrastructure projects will either be delayed or completely stop as a result of this budget cuts. But we also know that in the midst of COVID, a lot of the issues that came up is food sovereignty. And so learners, depending on 9 million learners to be exact, depending on a school meal a day, we're saying that should be a priority, which means that there should be additional funding towards not only infrastructure but to the National School Nutrition Program.
With growing unemployment and rising poverty in the country, members of the Black Sash have called on Mboweni and by extension the government to prioritise the need of the poor and vulnerable who depend on social grants.
They've only extended the caregiver grant for 3 months. We are still in a state of disaster and they are stopping the caregiver grant of 500 rand and the top-ups to the other grants. Also the SRD grant is only 350 rand. How can people live when the food poverty line is 585 rand? So it's important that when you look at the budget that you have to look at it through a human rights lens.
There's been vehement opposition to a bailout for SAA.
We think it's morally indefensible to do that when so many millions of South Africans are suffering right now. They've lost their jobs and their income, and there are so many other urgent things that we should be spending that money on, not on bailing out a bankrupt state-owned company that is not going to work.
Unemployed groupings and NGOs joined trade union SAMU in demanding jobs, decent pay and an end to retrenchments.
That budget speech, it needs to talk to the poor, it needs to speak to the excluded. The excluded no longer have a voice, but with SAMU and through its campaign and its exclusions, we are able then to say that they have a voice, where we are saying to the minister that his budget today needs to speak to creation of jobs for the people.
Protesters have all supported Equal Education's demand for increased funding for basic education. Vanessa Puna, SABC News, Parliament.